You're listening to Legacy Lawyers, hosted by Michael Haslam and Nathan Croxford.
Happy Friday, everyone. Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Legacy Lawyers podcast. This is Nathan, your host. Joining me today is the distinguished Brian Edwards, one of the attorneys here at our law firm. How are you, Brian?
Doing good. Happy to be here.
Yeah, let's lay down a track.
I don't have any musical puns. I'm sorry.
No, that's a Saturday Night Live. That's the cowbell. That's the Will Ferrell. Yes.
I do like
Christopher
that one.
Walken. Yeah, so everybody knows that. Although we are going to talk about rock and roll today, Brian's kind of a reluctant guest on this podcast.
Just say I don't know very much about this subject.
Well, you do. So what we want to do is we've kind of got a tradition on this podcast of looking at how things unfold in celebrities' lives, and especially when we have a celebrity pass away, how do things pan out when it comes to their estate plan? And unfortunately, in the last month or so, just in the last few days, actually, well, it's been about a month actually, we lost, in my mind, one of the pioneers of music, Ozzy Osbourne. He was part of Black Sabbath, and then he had a long solo career, affectionately known as the Prince of Darkness. So I guess we could say that the topic or the title for this podcast is going to be, what can the Prince of Darkness teach us about a good estate plan?
That's right.
Just makes me smile.
Nathan, you're gonna hate this about me probably. I probably can't even name one song.
Yes, you can.
Song. Like, I can't even think of one.
Come on, Crazy Train.
Oh, Crazy Train. I know that one.
Okay.
That one I know. That might be the only one though.
Okay. Well, there's lots of good ones. I mean, so I have two sons. My oldest is 22, and my youngest is about to turn 16. And they are both huge Ozzy Osbourne fans.
Oh yeah.
So I can say this because this podcast won't come out. But for one thing, my kids are not listening to my podcast. Let's just be honest about that. Like, dad podcasting is not their thing. But just to show you how big of fans, my oldest son bought an Ozzy Osbourne vinyl for my youngest son for his birthday that's coming up. So
awesome. That's really funny, I think.
My youngest doesn't know that that's happening, but he'll be super excited. And so anyway, the point of today is we want to look at, and it's still kind of early, so we're not going to know how the whole story plays out for a while, and maybe even until Sharon, Ozzy's wife, passes away.
Right.
How the estate plan works out. But what we know so far is that even though Ozzy had lived on the edge for much of his life and had the traditional rock and roll lifestyle, he was married to Sharon, his wife, who is the daughter of a big time talent manager. And she learned his ways. And when she got involved with Ozzy, she's been as much a manager, a business advisor, a brand ambassador, and a planner as she has been his wife.
Yeah.
What's also cool about them that's kind of uncommon in the world of celebrities is they've been married since 1982. So that's a long, it's a long marriage for
Is that 53
somebody like,
years?
yeah,
Or
which is, how cool is that? So cool. And Ozzy has
40?
3 children with Sharon. And I will have to be the first to admit that my kids know more than I do about Ozzy. So I love Ozzy Osbourne, but he's not somebody that I've spent, um, a lifetime following like some of the other bands that I follow. Um, but I know enough about him to know the impact that he's had on the world of music, and I like his stuff and have followed him. And obviously, like people outside of the music industry or outside of the music world know who Ozzy is because for a while they did a TV show, a
Mm-hmm.
reality
That's
TV
right.
show called The Osbournes.
Right.
Um, so that kind of introduced the whole world to Ozzy and his family, for better or for worse, depending on how you look at it. There were some pretty entertaining things, but um, his oldest daughter, Amy, who we'll talk about in a minute as it relates to the estate plan,
Yeah.
when she found out they were going to do a TV show, she was 16 at the time, and she's like, I want no part of this. So she left home at an early age to get out of that house before they started filming that show.
I
Um,
see.
she's now 41. It's crazy. So anyway, if we go back in time a little bit on our podcast, you'll find episodes. We actually started doing our podcast at the time that Britney Spears' guardianship was in full swing, and that was a pretty hot topic. So we did quite a few episodes on that, just because it was such a good example of, well, a good and a bad example of guardianship. Like we saw some kind of dark things come out of that. Maybe a father who had some different motivations than were appearing on the surface. She's since gotten out of that and is no longer subject to that guardianship. I think there's probably mixed opinions on whether or not that's a good thing or a bad thing based on what's happened with her since that time. But so that's kind of how we got into talking about celebrities. And we also did an episode on Tony Hsieh, who was the creator of, and I'm going to forget the name of this shoe, Zappos. He was the Zappos creator, which Zappos is a online shoe store, and it's huge. And they're people love them because you can buy shoes, you can try them on, you can send them back. They make things really simple. But if you go back and listen to that episode, Tony was definitely his own guy. Um, Marched the beat of his own drum. Um, did things his way. He left a wall full of post-it notes, which was
Oh wow.
essentially how he kept track of a lot of his business transactions, how he kept track of who owed him money, how he kept track of who he owed money to. So we did an interesting episode on that. We also talked a lot about Prince when Prince passed. That one was closer to my heart than Ozzy because I was a huge fan of Prince, saw him twice live. And Prince's estate is a perfect example of what not to do because Prince had a lot of interactions with attorneys that did not turn out well for him. A lot of them had to do with record label disputes and things of that nature. So he hated lawyers. He hated the thought of needing to work with lawyers. So when he accidentally passed away as a result of an overdose, um, he left a massive estate, a massive catalog of unreleased material, um, and no planning of any kind. So that case went to probate. The other problem that developed in that case as a result of no planning was that nobody really knew what Prince's estate was worth. And he was known as one of the most prolific artists ever. He has more unreleased material than he has released material. And the value of what was in the vault was vastly undervalued. in the tax return filings, the death tax return filings. So in some of our Prince episodes, we went back and talked about how the IRS came back and disputed the values that the estate put forward, and that ended in a revaluation with the IRS saying no, it's worth more than that. You underreported, you underpaid. So they ended up paying penalties, additional taxes, back taxes, interest. I think the final figure was somewhere in the like $82 million range as far as the size of check that was sent to the IRS
It's
as a
insane.
yeah, so mind-boggling numbers. Like, and the one thing I don't want people to take from this is that you have to be a celebrity or you have to be ultra wealthy to do an estate plan. That's just not the case. The reason we're looking at these celebrities is because their cases end up being so public and we're able to see the good and the bad.
Right.
And a good example, well, let's do one more bad one. Philip Seymour Hoffman also died. Very talented actor, also died of an overdose, sadly. Um, he had a thing about not wanting his kids to be quote unquote trust fund babies. So he did essentially no planning, um, left left it up to his CPA to put together a will for a $35 million estate where he left everything to his girlfriend,
Wow.
with the idea that she would provide for his children. That um, was a long, drawn out mess. And I think what um, we should learn from that is you can leave a trust for a child. You could leave a trust funded with millions and millions of dollars to a child and not end up with quote unquote trust fund babies. I think he meant that in a derogatory fashion, um, that he didn't want kids that were spoiled sitting back waiting for their trusts to send them checks.
Right. And I mean, even
And
in a situation like that, should your kids be young or you just don't trust them with money, you can set up a trustee to be in charge of the money, but so that's not a problem. But you want to make sure those kids are beneficiaries, so we know who is supposed to be benefiting from that money. It's okay
yeah,
if someone else is in
exactly.
charge of it, but yeah, I totally get that.
There's perfectly good, valid, and doable ways to have your kids be the beneficiaries of trusts without them turning out to be spoiled, unproductive
Yeah,
brats,
for sure.
right?
Oh yeah,
So, unfortunately, he didn't consult with an attorney. I don't know what the CPA is doing, preparing a will, but that was a mess. So let's talk about some good examples, of which Ozzy is one. So another one of the good examples was when Robin Williams passed away. I love Robin Williams, love everything he did.
this is
Super
Downfire. Is
sad,
still like one of my favorite movies.
classic,
Love
yeah.
it.
Goodwill Hunting. I mean, just his stand up, everything he did. Aladdin. I mean, my
Yeah,
kids today still watch Aladdin, which is an old school Disney where they still were drawing the cartoons instead of doing them on computers. And just the sheer genius of that,
yeah.
of the work he did in that movie is unbelievable
Oh, for
too. So
sure.
he was diagnosed with Lewy body dementia, which is a super bad kind of dementia. I think Bruce Willis also has Lewy body dementia, and he's in the process of. I don't even think Bruce Willis knows who he is anymore or where he's at, or so
Yeah.
super sad. But the second Robin, not the second, but soon after learning that he was suffering from that, um, he did not want to deteriorate slowly and fade away. So he hung himself, which is super sad. But before he did that, he did a good job of putting an estate plan in place for his kids. And we know virtually nothing about Robin Williams' estate because it was done right. So it didn't end
Yeah.
in a probate. It didn't end in a mess, and his he did things the right way. Ozzy's going to be a little tougher to make a judgment call on, just because when you have a married couple like Ozzy and Sharon, the real action in the estate plan doesn't really start to kick in until after the second spouse has died for the
That's
most
true.
part.
Yeah.
But that being said, from what I've been able to read, I'm looking at a couple of articles off the internet. So nothing that we're saying here is um, firsthand knowledge. I wish I had some firsthand knowledge, but this is all just based on media reporting. But um, from everything that I've read, there were some really cool things about his estate plan that are in place. So first of all, it sounds like everything's been accounted for. Um, his assets, they include obviously things like real estate, I'm sure investments of various kinds, but a lot of his wealth was wrapped up in his digital assets, his
Yeah.
recordings, his likeness, his voice, the royalties, the sponsorship, endorsement type deals. Um, but all of that has been, as far as we know, all of that has been accounted for and planned, and the plan is in place. Do you have any takes from the articles that you looked at?
Yeah. Two big things that kind of jumped out at me. That I thought was cool. Sharon, his wife, just said, "Hey, we're going to make sure that his likeness, his name, his image stays within the family, stays within the
Uh-huh.
Osbournes, and so it's bundled up from what we can see so far, right? And that's all going to be Osbourne property from here on out. Like it's not being sold to anybody. It's not going anywhere. It's staying within the family, which that seems to just be a big concern. And I get that. I understand that. I think it's cool that they went that way and doing that. Second thing that I saw, the way that they it's with Amy, the one daughter, the way that she's going to, and again, this might be after Sharon passes away. That's probably the best guess, but
Hmm.
um, currently 41. It says what we're seeing is that she gets a quarterly payment for a few years until she turns 50. Then she gets the ultimate principal given to her at that point, which I mean, people do that all the time. I see it all the time. We draft it that way all the time, especially for little kids. Mostly is where I see it, but even then, adults, I see it's then too where hey, we're going to hold this money up. It's not that you don't get your money. It's just there's going to be a process in how you get it, and then at a certain time you can get the whole amount. And I would say that's probably not the norm. I don't do that often, but it happens. And I just tell people you're welcome to give the money to your kids however you want. Like it doesn't have to just be an outright distribution. We
Right.
can hold it back. We can put limitations and again have somebody else be in charge of the money for a little bit if they think they're going to struggle with spending the money. I mean this amount is just a large amount for sure for the Osbournes, but don't know the reason why they did it this way, but they did, and it's interesting that it's in there. So those are the two things that just kind of jumped out at me as I read through the articles.
Yeah,
Um,
and it was cool because it also says that, and I don't think anybody that um, knows anything about Ozzy or saw any of the TV footage would doubt this, but that he loves all of his kids.
mhm.
He said he loves all of his kids equally, fame or no fame, it didn't matter to him. He wanted Amy to have the freedom to live her life how she felt um, was best, and her deciding not to be part of the TV show had no impact on that. So that was cool. And I do also really like that there was some structure in terms of how these kids, if he had died younger, if him and Sharon had died younger, it's clear that they had structured this in a way that would have protected the kids from what Philip Seymour Hoffman was worried about. And that is that you have kids that don't have the financial maturity to handle large sums of money or to
Yeah.
be in charge of their own money. That's why this trust was going to deliver quarterly payments. I would assume this is the case for all the kids, not just Amy,
I bet you're right.
that
Yeah.
until age 50, they'd get a quarterly payment. And then at age 50, whatever the remaining principal balance was of their share would go to them outright. So I would assume that's the case for Kelly and Jack as well. Um, let's see. The other, um, yeah. So Sharon's main concern was that she didn't want the control of the brand of Ozzy's likeness,
Yeah.
his music to just be in the hands of anybody. Or I think this is the kind of situation where if somebody's selling knockoffs, they're going to pursue that pretty vigorously and make sure that things are buttoned up. So um, clear beneficiary. So we had these are some of the highlights, right? Clear
Yep.
beneficiary designations. It was clear that each child was to be provided for. It's clear that Sharon has she's taken care of for the rest of her life. That we've got all of his assets tied into the plan. At least that's what we know so far. So they've taken the proper steps to fund the trust to make sure that the trust or trusts own these these assets, whether they're hard assets like real estate or bank accounts, or they're more digital recordings, um, endorsement deals, those kinds of things. We've got kind of centralized control. Sharon's always kind of been at the helm running things, and that'll continue to be the case. It'll be interesting to see who the trustee is when Sharon passes away. So that's something we don't know. And that's the other thing about plans that are done right is not everything's public, right? Like um, only what the family is willing to disclose ends up in the media um, because we're not having nasty court battles in a probate. We're not having the kind of chaos that goes with not having any kind of planning in place for an
Yeah.
estate of this size. I would hope that they've also worked with good tax planners and wealth planners to deal with whatever the death tax situation is.
Right.
And theirs is a little bit more complicated situation in that they're British. I actually don't know if Ozzy ever became a U.S. citizen. I don't think so. But they do own assets in the United States. So
Hmm.
and
And Britain it said too. Yeah.
and Great Britain. So there's at least two jurisdictions. He might have properties in other countries as well. We don't know.
Yeah.
Um, so, but yeah, those are kind of the hallmarks of a good plan. Is that we don't know all the details because there's not been any kind of a court filing, and there probably won't be.
And one thing that it points out in this article, but just as like a point, we don't know when they created their estate plan, right? That's
Hmm.
not listed, and that's fine. Um, but we could probably guess that was earlier on, maybe, but at least it wasn't within the last few months of his life. I don't know. But either way, from what you told me about Sharon, again, I don't know them well enough to know that, but like my guess is that she's on top of this, and she when something changes in their assets or in the way they want to do things, I bet they went straight to their attorney and said, "Hey, we're ready to switch this up. Something's changed," and just like from um, the '80s to now, just how much has changed in way we do assets. A lot of digital assets is where I'm thinking with that. Just updating it and make sure it's taken care of. Because again, this looks bundled up and things look like they're going to be taken care of. So my guess, and just what you told me, yeah, she's gone in and she has made sure that this is updated every time something has happened in our lives.
Yeah, and I think one of the articles points that out, that no one should ever view estate planning as a one-time event.
Yeah.
It's a process, right? And especially in a case like this where there's um, significant assets at play, like things are going to change. And this is true in um, every estate plan.
Oh,
Things
sure.
change that require updates, that require adjustments, that require additional funding activities. So if a new asset is acquired, it needs to be titled properly in the trust to make sure the trust can actually have the legal effect that we're looking for.
Right.
And I agree. I think that from what is visible to us on the outside looking in is that she was on top of this stuff. She was running it day to day. And if something changed, she was getting counsel from a good trusted advisor that was giving their family the right kind of advice. I guess one way to know that, or one clue that we that we're dealing with a family that has things buttoned up is back on July 5th, Ozzy had a final performance, right? He did a concert.
Yeah.
Um, and 17 days later, he died. And when I, when I heard that he had passed, I thought, man, that has got to be the most serendipitous timing I've ever heard. The guy on
Yes.
July 5th holds his final performance. He sat in this awesome, you pointed out, this
Yeah.
killer looking throne with
Like
like a
awesome.
big black bat on the back of it,
Yeah.
and just did this killer performance. And it was touching. I mean, some people are going to be listening to this rolling their eyes going, oh my gosh, this guy was a crazy rock star, and these guys are acting like, let's just say I'm the only one engaged in any kind of star worship here. Brian's just a, a
Oh,
rational observer.
that's
But
right.
I thought it was a cool concert. I thought it was a cool performance. It was super touching. There were times where you could tell that he wanted to stand up out of that chair and
Yeah.
bang his head and rock like he used to. He just couldn't do it. Physically, he just couldn't do it. So this morning, when I was kind of prepping for this podcast, I read an article that said they knew he was dying. And I think everybody knew he was not doing well. He had Parkinson's
Yeah.
that was kind of eating him up. But he ended up dying of a combination of a heart attack and complications of Parkinson's. But it sounds like more so than being just good timing or lucky timing, it sounds like um, Sharon knew, like, it's close,
Yeah.
and he's probably got one more performance in him, and we better get it set up, we better get it planned, we better get it.
Do it.
um and it was obviously, it was filmed, it's there for posterity.
Yeah.
Anybody can go back and watch that, and we will be able to do that for the rest of time. So um I think once again this is a demonstration that not a lot was left up to luck. Once Sharon got involved, I feel like she knew that they better have one more concert and have him perform one final time, and then he was going to pass. I don't know if they guessed that it would happen less than 3 weeks after that performance, but
Yeah.
they clearly knew that something was up. So I guess where we'll leave this, Brian, unless you have some other insights, is um, the sooner you start thinking about your legacy and how you want to leave it to your family, the better. We want to make sure that our listeners find a trusted advisor, somebody that can work with them on an ongoing basis so that they don't make the mistake of seeing estate planning as a one and done. Um, and so we want to get that plan in place as soon as possible. We want to keep it up over time, and we want to make sure that everything's accounted for so that when um, somebody's health takes a turn for the worse, like Ozzy's did, um, we can just sit back and know that the important things have been taken care of, and now let's just enjoy the time we have left.
I agree. I agree with that. I will throw one if I was listening to this podcast, I just gotta throw this in here. I'd be like, oh, he said 52 years or 53 years, and that number was wrong. I'd be sitting there this whole time being like, is he ever going to correct himself? So here I am correcting myself.
Oh, that's how it's
43 years.
Okay, so you
to 2025. That's 43 years, not 53 years. I gave him 10 extra years of marriage. So
that's still about 40 years longer than most celebrity marriages last.
I think you're right. Yeah. I think you're
right.
For sure. So.
Yeah, and I guess forgive us if for the diehard Black Sabbath and Ozzy fans out there, forgive us for any misstatements that we've made about him or the band.
Right.
Mainly what we wanted to do was highlight somebody that was very influential in his field, that accumulated a large estate, and that, from what we can tell so far, did some really good things in terms of how he planned for his family before he passed away. So that was the main point of this.
Yes.
I'm sure you could go into your podcast provider of choice and put in Ozzy Osbourne and have 150 different podcasts pop up and get all the other details that you're looking for if you want more on Ozzy as a musician, Ozzy as a performer, Black Sabbath, and so forth. So,
yeah, I agree.
Hey, Brian, thanks for joining me. We appreciate everybody listening out there, and we will catch you on the next one.
Sounds good. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Bye, everybody.
Goodbye.
You've been listening to Legacy Lawyers with Michael Haslam and Nathan Croxford. We give you the juicy detail of cases that our law firm has dealt with. We take out the lawyer talk and legalese and show you what options some of our clients had to choose from to fix their situation. The effects of not doing planning can be devastating. We'll be back soon, but in the meantime, hook up with us on Facebook and Instagram at Voyant Legal. Call us at 801-951-0500 or send us an email at team@voyantlegal.com. And for commonly asked questions, hit voyantlegal.com/resources. We'll see you next time.